Okay, we're going to bring this meeting to order. Today is September 22nd, 2014. This is the Policy Committee. In attendance, Mrs. Torsia, Mike Wolf, Carol Bites, Connor Kurtz is not in attendance and will not be able to call in, I believe.
No.
So I'll be pinch hitting for him tonight. Okay, where do we want to get started?
Can we please start with the proposal of a new policy? It's brand new to the district, and that is on service animals in schools. And the policy that I'd like to reference, there's a sample in there, and it says policy number 2. And I had read through this policy. Can you find it?
Yeah, this is the one. There was two of one from PSBA.
It is the one. It is the one that I sent you. The PSBA one went into service animals a little too in depth. I don't really see me using.
I saw service horse.
Yeah,
which
I didn't think I'd need a service horse. Yes. So the policy that I would recommend for us to adopt is the one that's presented, 718, service animals in schools. I read through this policy. I liked it. It really fit our situation, and I think any future situation. On page 3 is the only place where I had made change, because where this policy originated from, they were using the Director of Pupil Services as their point of contact. I'm changing that to my Director of Special Education. And as you know, there's some things that are going on that I think would make this policy very important for the district to have moving forward.
When I went through, I had a chance to read it, and most of this policy that you're looking at actually is culled right out of the PSBA policy anyway. So
right.
It's already a lot of it.
That I didn't think this would be too much to review, so then I will go ahead and have Sandy, then if we can make that recommendation at the board meeting, that we're going to...
I like it's concise and clear.
Okay.
At this point, I can't comment on how comprehensive it will be.
I think
according to what I'm experiencing right now with the current situation, this is going to be able to address it. I feel very comfortable with this policy.
Yeah, because they have to, what I like is that, we certainly don't want to take away somebody's rights to have a service animal like this, but we need to know that the animal can be controlled, that it's being used for the purpose which they state, and it has documentation for its all its shots and everything else.
Right.
And, quite frankly, they're responsible for the animal does misbehaves or damages equipment or something another student's property, that ultimately they're responsible for it.
So there is no current policy?
There is nothing. Okay. So that's why I would be recommending to the board for us to adopt this and get this one into place.
I think. Do you feel comfortable moving that along?
Yes, I am.
So do I.
Okay, great. The next, I thought that we may need more time to discuss to continue our discussion on booster support and organizations, because I've spent some time myself going through what we have so far, and then I spent a lot of time over the weekend dissecting a lot of different school districts and their booster organization policies, just to see what we might be missing in here. Some things that I think I would like to reference, because I see something like the adoption of any gifts or us receiving any gifts, whether it be uniform or any kind of equipment, that should be stated that it becomes ours then, so that it doesn't walk away, or that somebody doesn't assume it is. So there's some things that I wanted to add. So if you don't mind going to the booster policy, if you're okay with me directing, are you all right with that? I'm used to being the one. I'm used to being.
You're used to being the one in charge. It's okay. And so I'm married, so I'm used to that too.
Okay, so I apologize on a lot of different levels. So some of my notes. The first thing that I think one of the concerns was that should this be all-encompassing for our boosters for both music and sports, PTC, and Blazer Foundation, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. But I don't think that we want to bring or make having a 501 C3, and we don't so far, but I just wanted to bring this up, be a part of it, because our PTC does not have one. And more because they're falling under a nonprofit status. So I wouldn't want to have them incur an extra cost for something that they don't need in order to operate. The bigger organizations know that they have to have those in place. And if you wanted to separate it out and say, you know, we expect boosters, music, sports to have one, Blazer Foundation has to have one because they're looking at getting much larger sums of money in, and then as a perk, and the only thing that I understand a 5013C does is that it allows them to submit that receipt of their donation for tax purposes. So PTC is not really doing any of that. They're just doing small fundraising events. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Would we exempt them?
Well, then you need to have, I would think, to put something in place where they could appeal and have it brought before the board for ultimately our approval to waive that.
Currently, in the language that we have, we don't have anything in here that states a 501c3 as being a requirement. And so
Yeah, I thought we did.
Well, and I have the last one that was updated with things that, well,
I just had my notes. I didn't.
Right. But if we...
All right, that was one of the things we decided that we were going to add. Number 14, tax exempt status.
Okay, you're looking at the guideline.
The markup, yeah.
Okay. And I think then we need to state something there, because I wouldn't want to see PTC and all their good work go without, because they don't have one.
Okay. I can understand the argument, because certainly these groups that fundraise for the district for the benefit of the students in the district, we don't want to hamstring their ability
Right.
to function and serve our students, but at the same time we need some clear oversight, and basically we want to know in advance when something's happening, not finding out
Right,
and I'm control after.
And I'm addressing that and some of the other things. So if you want to hold on to the guidelines part till last,
okay.
All right.
Yep. Okay.
In the definition, I just added that we should have, if we're going to have everyone, that we need to make sure that sports boosters, music boosters, parent teacher council, and Blazer Foundation are included, and then any other, because those are our four that are currently serving us.
Okay.
Follow me, Carol?
Foundations under this?
Well,
Yeah.
they're not listed in here, but I don't know how they would be any different, because they would be considered a support organization.
So, yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking like that. But
Stephanie, are you? I'm saying that we were including the Daniel Boone Blazer Foundation as part of the organizations that would be under this policy to be supported. And I have an extra policy up here if you need one. If anyone needs one, for that matter.
my understanding is that there are other definitions in law. I guess we would need to just that define how the relationship between the foundation and the school. I thought that was a separate set of government.
Speak up.
Oh.
Yeah, am I on?
No, we're not on. Yeah, sorry.
My understanding was that the foundations were defined in Pennsylvania law in their own relationship with the schools. Is that right, Mrs. Conlon, or have I overlooked?
I'm sorry, I just came in a minute ago, so I'm.
Are there guidelines that by the state that dictate your relationship and reporting requirements, et cetera, with the school? Or are we correct?
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
but I will say that I know when the board was set up and when the last foundation board was around, it was a community foundation, and a lot of times education foundations are not just limited by helping the school, but can also help the community as well.
Okay.
So I don't know if that changes anything, and also our members do not have to be parents. They can be community members. I also think they can even perhaps live outside our community.
Okay.
That's the way I have seen it with other foundations.
I know. Yeah, I know that Rich had a comment. Nope, that's what you had.
Comment on number 4. It says officers link must be a parent or related
Right.
party, and then the foundation doesn't.
Right, and I'm not, okay. So we don't want to include Blazer Foundation then? I should look at,
Let's just double check on
okay,
that.
all right, we'll do. All right,
They already have their bylaws and their mission, and want to make sure. I mean, I thought that
Well-
process was already.
yeah, I don't,
I wouldn't want to throw them in turmoil.
I will look into that. And I know that we're not going to be done with this. If you go on to the next page of the policy sample, where it does have guidelines and where it does say that officers of a booster support organization directly linked to a student activity must be a parent or legal guardian, I'm questioning this.
I thought we took that out.
Okay. Can it say that it could be anyone that resides in the community? I mean, I think if you're an alumni and you're vested in this
Yeah,
organization, I don't want to limit
it's hard
people.
enough, at least in our experience, it's hard enough to get volunteers, period, for some
Right.
things. So I don't know that I'd necessarily want to limit, say
Right.
somebody, say even you don't reside in the district, but yet you have a
It does say
vested.
officers, though.
But I think it's still hard. If Blazer Foundation would be there, if they would, however, they have a difficult time getting people to be a part of their organization, let alone to make them be a person who has a child in the school. So
I would just be afraid that we'd get people in position of authority that don't really have the students' best interest in
Well,
them.
I don't know how all the boards work, but these officers are voted on by the membership.
right.
So they just can't say, well, you know what, I'm going to be president of
And they
the
have
sports today.
right, and they have specific
And I think
bylaws.
Mrs. Hefner is nodding her head also. So.
Okay.
So how officers of
The groups are
boosters.
okay with that idea right now.
Okay, so officers of a booster support organization directly linked to a student activity
Suggesting
or do we just take that out?
I guess we're just-
Period.
I
Just
think
take
take
the
it
whole
out.
thing
the
out?
bylaws would then dictate
Right.
who their officers would become.
I would think so.
Sir, you had a question.
Just correct it.
Yeah.
Kelly, was that your concern as well?
My concern is that, it's the same concern. However, really, this is going to fall down to the bylaws of each individual organization. They're going to set who will be their officers and not. Last year, Music Boosters president had a student who graduated. She did an exceptional job.
Mhm.
I agree. You can't limit your volunteers.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a child doesn't mean they're dependable. There's a lot of work involved in this.
All right. Then moving down into where in the next body, the board requires from each group the school-related community organization's annual report, a list of current officers, including contact information, current statement, bylaws and objectives of the group. Instead of saying that the purchase of equipment and apparel in excess of $1,000 by a booster or support organization, which is right below, for a district must include advance notification to the superintendent or designee, can we just incorporate that they have to submit a budget every year by August for the vote for the committee of the whole, showing what their expenditures are for the year, and then we could ask them if there would be anything that's wavering from their budget that would be in excess of $1,000, or maybe even if they're wavering from their budget period, that they have to ask for approval.
What I don't want to have happen, and I said it before, is that you have multiple donations of just under that amount that equal the aggregate gets to larger money of $5,000 or so, and then I don't want to get back into that whole Title IX discussion. That's really what my concern was with this.
Okay.
So I mean, submitting a budget as long as they're following their budget.
Right.
I don't know.
If there was a mechanism for things as soon as they're not off budget to come back up for
I think
approval.
Kelly's jumping out of her chair to answer that. Go.
If you have a budget, you're actually going to get a much clearer picture. And if somebody is coming to you every time they're going to make a purchase. So if I submit a budget to you for each team, you're going to take a look and see exactly what each team is looking to spend that year. You get a clear picture overall of all the teams. If something happens and something breaks and they need to alter that budget in any way, that's at the point where they should come to the superintendent, whomever you designate, to say, look, our soccer nets were cut and we need to buy a new one, whatever happens. I think it's going to give you a better picture by looking at something as a whole throughout the year than just doing it item by item.
Oh, I agree 100%. Knowing in advance, what could be coming, so that the administration has an opportunity to react to to the budget. Absolutely agree.
So
Well, I just don't want something, and I know you're on the up, and a lot of the booster organizations are, but we're not all going to be here, and what's left is going to be the policy, and the policy is what really should drive, how things are done. So
I didn't see anything in the policies that I was reviewing that really designated $1,000. It was more about a budget. And then I have some other things that I would like to add as to support them having a budget and what we also want them to do.
I think purchase over and under $1,000 if we're approving a budget.
we're not approving their budget.
Yeah, that's what we are. That's what I'm saying. That
In October,
no,
part of the.
I say by August. That prior to the start of the year, when they're starting to purchase things for the seasons or for the whatever, that they supply that budget August 1. I'm going to give that as a deadline because our committee of the whole, it has to be on the committee of the whole so that the board can discuss it and then be adopted at the voting meeting.
But the under 4 guidelines,
it needs to change.
The documents, so far it's October 31st.
Right.
So we're saying
yes.
We're going to back that up.
I'm saying add budget here also. I would say current officers, including contact information, current statement of bylaws and objectives of the group, and a budget, an annual budget.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know, Kelly, when do you normally fix your budget for the coming school year?
We usually do it for sports boosters in September, because that's our big meeting and that's when we vote on it. It's hard to get people to a meeting in August for our large budget.
Yep.
But if that's
similarly, it's that way for the music boosters too, because after graduation, really nothing happens until the beginning of September.
But the officers for the next following season are set in May, so it certainly could happen that we could at least put together
or at least a preliminary budget,
August.
something.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how. Mr. Basil, you had a question.
It would seem to me, from the board perspective, it makes sense, obviously, for them to submit a budget. Again, we don't have any authority over their 501(c). They can create their own budgets, do whatever they want with those budgets, allocate those dollars however they see fit. So I like the idea that the budget is submitted for review, but I don't think the board has any legal authority to direct, how they manage their budget. So I do think there needs to be a statement here as it is. The budget can be changed a little bit regarding the size of the purchase, and that it shouldn't exceed in the aggregate a certain dollar figure without board approval, just so we have an opportunity to monitor Title IX. Because what's going on at the booster level, they may not be aware of what's going on at the district level, right? So at the district level, we should have the perspective of both dollars that are being spent. Whereas on one side, they only have their budget to look to. They don't know what's going on at the district side of things. So I think by providing a budget, and we all know budgets change, things get allocated throughout the year. They're doing fundraising all the time, so they may have more money available to do something or less than what they anticipated. So, it's all well to provide a budget in August, but how strictly that budget is adhered to when you get to January or February, it may be extremely different.
That's why I had asked for $1,000 for purchases that exceed $1,000 that we be notified. But it's really so.
I think that's a bit of a routine approval. We have to get up on the board. That's just my opinion.
Yes, sir.
If there were to be any Title IX infringement or infraction that you may make as a result of what the boosters do, wouldn't it be over a period of time rather than maybe a calendar year? I would think that it would have to take some time. And that would be very difficult for the amounts that we could raise as boosters to get you significantly out of the filter to where it's a real Title IX infraction.
I could give you a good example right away. The the football uniform showed up, and that was a significant purchase. It'd be,
But that wasn't a booster purchase, to my understanding.
No, what
that
I'm
was
saying
a donation.
It was a donation,
right.
Okay, that came into the district. It was intended for the boys program only, okay? And, go back 2 years ago, we had just, maybe 2 months before that, cleared our name after a false charge of these type of infractions before. We had just got done putting that whole legal mess behind us. I think it was $20,000 we spent in legal fees. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Basil. And then this came right on the heels of that. So, and we certainly, the person who donated the money, clearly generous. We don't want to in any way, prevent or impede people from donating freely. I think we just want to know, have it out in the open. The administration is aware of it. We know it's coming. So if they have to shift money around, so if a $10,000 donation is made to like a boys program, that some money is then shifted in the budget for a equal spend on a girls program.
But doesn't Title IX have to do more with quality than actual purchase amount? Like, you're supposed to maintain a same level of
funding equity.
Right.
Funding equity. It doesn't have to be dollar for dollar.
If the boys bowling team, they're never going to spend $1,000. So putting that dollar amount.
What's coupled with what we're spending on the district end too, though, right?
Well,
the point is
right. And I looked into that. Our contribution from the general fund to athletics is primarily for our salaries. Most of, well, if not all of the uniforms that are on a rotation have been funded and paid for through boosters. Balls, helmets, all of the equipment that they need to be able to compete, that it needs to be renewed and, fixed, or what's the right word? Like every year they have to redo the football helmets, etc. Boosters is paying, well, not for that part of it, but they're paying for almost all of the uniforms that are bought on a rotation. I'm trying to break down what our athletic budget is exactly and what it does encompass, but I know boosters is picking up way more than what we're providing.
We need to clarify when we say boosters. There is sports boosters, which oversees all of the individual teams and helps with general purchases for all athletics. You then have individual teams that are fundraising. Those individual teams are fundraising to make the purchases of their equipment. Boosters is not purchasing uniforms. The team is fundraising and purchasing. Like
the basketball team, for instance, right now just put in for new uniforms, and that's because they're fundraising for them. I know that field hockey is looking at new uniforms, and the team themselves are fundraising for them. It's not coming through booster. It's a student activity fundraise. So,
but you can certainly donate something to the district through the booster organization as an agenda item that we can approve.
So anything that comes through our organization is going to be a donation. Whether the students raise the money or a parent brings a check for it, it's always going to be a donation. So whether the football uniforms were donated by one parent or 50 parents raised the money, it's still classified as a donation. So then you have to look at those football uniforms correlated with what other teams got uniforms that year. So cheerleading got uniforms, soccer got uniforms, girls soccer got uniforms. There were many teams that got uniforms. They're not all going to come in at the same amount of money because, of course, they all cost different types of things. Whether other teams got uniforms in that year. So I know what you're saying about the football uniforms.
I just threw that out as an example.
Donations.
It was a large donation that the administration didn't have foreknowledge that it was coming. It didn't have the ability to approve the new design.
You didn't have a policy in place. But remember, many other teams got uniforms that year, and not a word was said about one of them. I'm just
It's not.
bringing up the facts.
We spent a lot of time with our attorneys talking about this. Okay, think of it as an logarithm. Okay, the formula that's being used to weigh whether or not you're in violation of Title IX. It's not an arithmetic formulation. There's many, many different variables that are weighted differently in their evaluation. So money is one of them. If it was just money, it would be easy to figure it out. But it's money, it's parity of opportunity, it's parity of uniforms, doesn't matter what the cost is. I mean, it's a whole variety of different things. So money is just one trigger that sets this thing off kilter. So, you know, globally, the board has to be aware of all these things. And I don't think this is trying to inhibit anybody from contributing. What we're trying to do is, from a board perspective, make sure that all that information is coming in front of the board. So we have an opportunity as a district to review it, evaluate it, and understand how it's coming in and how we can reallocate our resources to make sure we're not in violation of Title IX. I mean, I think that's where the rub has been in the past. I think somehow we're trying to control donations or prohibit something from happening. We're not trying to do that at all. We just want to understand the totality of what's happening, and it's got to get in front of the board for their evaluation.
Well, and I can say that
I think Mrs. Torch's suggestion makes sense because you're going to look at everything on a whole.
But that's just one budget,
right.
one booster.
No.
No.
You know what I'm saying? But this says all groups. Each group, all groups, okay? So, you know, if we have a private donation or somebody else who wants to come in and donate some money too, that's got to be approved by the board. Okay? So whether it's a sports team that's fundraising and some parent decides I'm going to be generous, I'm going to give $50,000 to whatever sport I played to one year. Okay? That's got to come to the board for approval.
And if it's not in the budget, it would have to come to the board. It just seems like what you're saying makes more sense because you're looking at everything on a whole, and then you're approving all the purchases that would be made.
Well, you're not saying that. You're just saying that it needs to come to my attention.
Yeah,
You're going
we
to
need
do it
to be
all
aware.
at once, and then anything that deviates from that, you're still
Right.
going to-
Really, the way that
That's what I don't
it
understand.
right, the way that it's stated right now is that, and what I have set up with Michelle Goss and anyone else, whether it's a PTC president or music, that people have been telling me when they have larger purchases that are coming, it has been coming to me. And by the way, Boosters organization wants to replace the golf cart, for instance. She's letting me know, okay, how much is the golf cart? All right, why does it need replacing? Because there's this, and this is faulty with the other one. So according to the way this says, I can give her the okay, let Boosters know that they can replace it. So we're not stating that it has to come to board approval for everything. It's just making sure that I'm aware, or the person that's sitting in this seat is aware. So I think we'll be okay with that because that's happening automatically anyway. But I think what we needed to include, which we did, it was having a budget so that we have an idea what it looks like moving forward for any of the organizations.
I think what's important is, and the thing I took away from just the example that I gave for the football is, when we talked to Mr. Hankel, he wasn't aware of it. Right. And quite frankly, that's unacceptable because, we don't want to interfere with anything the boosters are doing, because it's hard enough to get people involved, to donate their time, to run these things, and we don't want to make it overburdensome. However, the district needs to be part of what's going on because we're ultimately held responsible for what you're doing with our students.
Mr. Huddleston.
I'm not arguing that with you.
Yeah.
No, I know you're not.
I do believe that you need a policy.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. That I'm not arguing
And it's as much as to protect us from somebody. Because you run the sports boosters very well. Hopefully everyone that precedes you follows you will always be that way. But we have to have something in place because unfortunately on the sports side is where we have the Title IX issues. Because we don't have that with the PTC. We're not going to have that with the music side because they're co-ed by nature. So that's why we're talking about, and that's why we wanted to include you in the discussion.
Mr. Huddleston had a remark.
Yes, sir.
I think having the policy together, having the budget with it is a good thing. And understand that you're not looking to do the approval, more of a checks and balances to make sure that we don't get 15,000, 15,000. That's a good thing. Where did the $1,000 come from?
That was my idea. Right now we had no.
My only concern of the 1,000 is that this is one tiny little problem, or one tiny little thing that's happening with everything else going on. I don't think the board. I know it's just a designee, which is good.
Right.
There's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of people coming to stuff. If the baseball team needs 2 new bats, and all our kids bring their own bat, and some program they're looking to get their own to have for a team, They go out and buy 2 Easton torches. They're $5.49 a piece. 2 bats. They're coming to you for 2 bats. There's a lot of equipment that's going to be coming in because the school district has cut so much. They don't cover baseballs or softballs. They don't give enough money to cover for what people see. They're going to be coming every month for stuff, and it sometimes will take too long. So I would like to see the price be a little higher.
I just picked the number as a trigger.
A little low because of the cost of something. I don't think it needs to be 10,000 because it gets out of whack. But most purchases in the sports equipment realm are going to be $400 or $500 for each individual thing, and it's going to get.
Okay, well let me throw it back at you and Kelly. What do you think would be an amount that you would set it at?
It's hard to say because each sport is going to spend, and the size of the team also. If you've got, I'm going to go back to the bowling team or the golf, they aren't going to spend as much money as, let's say, the football team just because there's not as many players on the team. So it's hard to put a set dollar amount. Or if you're looking at the quality of the budget submitted, that
5,000 I think would be an
makes more
average.
sense to me.
Is it correct to just come to us whenever you're off budget, over budget?
And that's
I mean,
that
give
makes
us
more
a-
sense.
See,
I think it's better for you.
You're going to submit a budget which may or may not have all this,
Yes,
and all we're asking is if all we're asking is if something strays.
Right. And when if they're under budget, that's a no.
Right.
It triggers no interaction with the board. But
Right,
if they're
but-
over budget on any one item.
So can we say the purchase of equipment and apparel that exceeds budgeted?
10% over budget.
Oh, there you go. Or
See,
Yeah,
10%
over
of.
budget has to
I don't
come
like to use
after-
percentages because it's a variable depending on who you're talking about.
the purchase of equipment and apparel that exceeds
Preliminary
preliminary budget?
Just be in a routine of just sending
Anything that
them up.
exceeds it?
We always sometimes.
Again, this is when I can imagine the process being you want to donate. All right, your example that you have 2 bats, they're over $1,100. It's an email to Kelly who sends it to Mary Beth or Mr. Hankel, whatever,
Or Michelle. I mean,
or
so
Michelle,
keep her in there, yeah.
and it's okay.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a board action.
I just think it's.
I don't think it's a board action.
Right.
If it's within a certain.
Well, you can't
Because it says more the
have.
business
We need to
owner.
have some type of oversight.
Right.
So we can't make it easy and then still ask for oversight. So I don't know where the balance is
I say
between
the
that.
balanced budget, I say they submit a budget when it's X% over budget. If it goes over budget, it has to get approval by the administration. And if it's particularly over budget, then it has to come back to the board.
Most of the time, you're going to know what you need. Like,
So
if
you
know
would-
the bat law changed, and we need to buy bats, then they're going to put in the budget, we need 4 new bats for the season. We need baseball helmets at X amount of money. You don't need uniforms. because
So
bought
you
them
would
whenever.
break it down. You were going to break it down by sport. Football,
Sure.
look,
Each
the
sport has their own
each
budget.
one's going to have it.
Yeah.
And then you
Take
can
it out.
I think
it
that
out.
would.
I have no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just
Then
think
remove
it's
that.
better for you. I'm not trying to make it harder. I think it's better.
No,
I think
All right.
the suggestion was good.
thank you for the comment.
We beat
We're
that
trying
up.
to,
All right.
like I said, we're trying to develop this with you. You know,
Right, and
All right.
better for
Not in
every
spite
year.
of you.
Right. We will not all be here in a few years.
You got a large donation after the budget process has been submitted.
Right.
And you could either defer your purchase and it would show up in the next year's budget, say if it was.
the wording.
supposed to
You
be
have to
budget.
figure out with how we're.
Or that would
wording on
trigger
Is
an
it
event for you
okay, so we'll-
to come to the administration before
Purchase,
you made the purchase,
Correct.
right?
Before you
Okay,
say
so
how
we'll
do
say
we
budgets
Codify that.
So I would say anything that's not.
that-
Anything, any changes.
An
Any
individual,
Not be submitted
I want to call it team budgets that exceed 10% of their posted budget.
They have notified administration,
Yeah.
and we can work out what our process is.
10% of their proposed budget.
Any purchases that take them over the budget
Well-
triggers, they have to come to
Yep.
the administration.
Budget,
And then internally, we should decide what, I don't, you know,
Must
board action or.
notificate, must include
Take that whole $1,000 part out.
advance notification,
In approval.
The budget submitted in paragraph 2.
notification to the superintendent.
All right. Why don't we read
Leave
back?
that budget in under 4 paragraph
We'll
2.
read back here what we came up with as a
All right, so what we did was we took out the purchase of equipment and apparel in excess of $1,000 by a booster support organization for a district team must include an advance notification to the superintendent. Took that out, and in its place we're going to say individual team budgets that exceed 10% of their proposed budget must include advance notification to the superintendent or designee. Okay?
Individual team?
Yes.
Well, and that's the only way we're going to see it.
Because the team
is if we
budget,
know
the
about
teams are who are coming in for the request, and they're raising funds, and
Doesn't that show up on the...
Thank you.
Doesn't that
Very
show
good.
up on the booster group's reporting? Wouldn't it be...
I think what they're saying is like if they weren't if it's exceeding it, because it's by team necessarily, if something might come up, like the cheerleaders I know change their uniforms
I thought
regularly.
all that was coming up. I thought all the sports teams were going to come up on a budget from sports boosters. What we're questioning is who is responsible to notify the administration? The team that wants to
There's going to be a
or the
board.
booster?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
Submit them to you. Right.
Yeah.
But they will
Booster
make up
board,
their
not
own.
the
Okay.
team. The team's not notifying us.
Okay,
The
so
board is.
booster
We're going to be dealing with the same set
Board.
of individuals.
I would imagine you're going to be dealing with their secretary of the booster organizations, because that's who's going to.
Right, not the individual
Right.
team parents.
Is that true,
or whatever.
Kelly?
Yeah, we can collect them and
Right.
present them to you so that you have
That
them
would be
on
great.
whatever date
Yes,
that
so
you
we're
pick.
working with
And
the
then
same
we can
group
be a
of people.
liaison
I changed
between
it.
the teams.
So
Yes.
booster board budgets that exceed 10% of their proposed budget must include advance notification to the superintendent or designee.
Now,
It would be budget items like
Right.
what's the date? What date are we going by for when they have to get all our documents submitted to us?
I put August 1st.
August
Or it
1st.
could be the
We don't-
That's going to be
we don't
pretty.
have to do that.
That's going to be pretty
Yeah.
difficult for you, Kelly. I mean, I know.
August 1st. What was
Or
the
August
date you were
30th?
Picking around that would be practical
Personally, I
or
would
preliminary?
think because you're dealing with seasons,
Mhm.
you almost would want either 2 or 3 dates. You would need your fall ones by a certain date, the winter ones,
I
the
was
spring
thinking the same
ones.
thing.
Or
What do you
6
think
months
about that?
prior.
6 months. 6 months prior to the start of the season. So if football season, you know what I mean, football season would be due
Or
in
3 months.
You could do 3 months. They should have a good idea of what it is that they're going.
I like that.
I think-
really like that.
Barring there's, one year the PIA double A changed the regulations on soccer uniforms, and all of a sudden we're forced into buying new soccer uniforms because they don't fit. Something like that happens. That's when we go to
Right,
whomever
that
you
would be
have.
the exception,
Right.
not the rule.
Mr. Basil.
I just, I think I have a little bit of reservation on the percentage as well, just because what's the size of the overall budget that's being discussed? And if it's 9%, that's, pick a number, that's $9,000 being purchased, and it doesn't come to the attention of the administration for whatever reason. That may be a tipping point. I don't know what the tipping point is for a Title IX issue. So I'm not suggesting that that's the wrong answer.
Maybe
I'm just
any-
suggesting you may want to talk to Brian Subers
Yeah.
about his opinion on.
And I did speak to Brian, and he was not real exact with the way that as long as if the boys basketball team's getting new uniforms, the girls basketball team should be getting new uniforms. He's looking at the equity there. If girls are getting a whole lot of things, Title IX doesn't care. The girls can get everything under the sun, the moon, and the stars, and yeah. But it's as soon as a boys team is getting something more than what any other team is, and yeah, with the checks and balances, I would hope that they would have in place, and what we have in place now administratively, that we shouldn't have anything sneaking under.
Well,
But
could it be $1? Could it be $1 over budget? Is that impractical for you guys to?
It could be,
Could we
yeah.
just
If you
do-
go over budget,
You build your budget,
yes,
you
I
build
would
yourself
be
a margin of safety.
Yes.
We approve that budget. We run
Right.
it through all the numbers,
We're
and if
really
it's
not-
$1 over budget, they'll come to us.
If you
I mean,
budget
some teams
right.
have $50 in their accounts. Some teams at their peak, before they spend anything, might have $7,000, but then they spend it all. So you're not talking that any of these teams have
Yeah,
$50,000 sitting in their
individually.
account.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
sports
the aggregate,
boosters,
which is what
we don't have that.
I don't think you should. I agree, the percentage can get a little bit out.
So budgets that exceed
A regular company runs
their
it.
proposed budget?
You have to be-
Right.
explaining.
That's what we're basically down to. If they exceed their budget, then they have to.
And they have to let us know.
That doesn't put a burden on you.
All right, so then we'll just leave it as
Right.
if you exceed your budget,
You have to let us
you have to
know.
let us know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I like it.
All right.
But I think we need to, in order for the administration, I think if something would be out of kilter, to be able to make shifts in whatever funding that we need to do, because if we have, as an example, tens of thousands of dollars being donated to boys teams and we have half of that amount to girls teams, we're responsible. So I think, and that's going to be a problem for the district. We're going to have to look at that and say, well, that may have to come out of our general fund because we need to fund these equitably, or we tell the people donating to the boys side, you can't donate.
But it's not attributed to a boy or a girl sport until the money's spent, not when the money's donated.
True.
Right?
True, but if you know what I'm...
boosters get it and they hold it and work it into their budget, right?
Right.
You might want to do it in the next calendar year because you're seeing equity or disparity that year, right? So they would be sort of managing.
But I would think the business office would want that information as soon as possible, so they know if there's any disparaging, donations that they need to.
They're going to see the donations on the reporting, but as I said,
Again, anything that we raise, whether it's parent raised or it's donated, is going to be considered a donation. You know what I'm saying? So whether a company writes a check for $5,000 to cross country, or softball sells $1 raffle tickets, it's still a donation. So any money that's coming in is still going to be a donation. Am I correct on that? That's how I've
we're just going
If
with
anything,
funds and
any money
receipts.
that is directed to our students
Right.
in any way, we're responsible for.
Right, so then it would be the expenditures, it's what we're spending that you're
It's the
looking at.
spending
Right.
Not
that triggers
necessarily
the-
what's coming in. And I don't think Title IX is on a yearly basis because, basketball might need uniforms this year, boys basketball, but girls basketball doesn't because they bought theirs 2
Right.
years ago. So it's, just like when you file your taxes and you're a nonprofit, you have 4 years. They look at that over 4 years because they know that in certain years you're going to spend a lot of money and in other years you're not going to spend a lot of money. So kind of keep that in mind too when you're looking at budgets. You have to look at an overall picture.
Right.
As far as the cutoff for when we would want the budget submitted, PIA has actual start dates, right? The one a season.
Right, yes.
I-
3 months before the start of that, but that official.
I would say
opening date?
you're going to know your budget probably by the end of August, beginning of September.
What about the spring sports one?
For fall
Sure.
and winter sports, and then maybe the beginning of January for spring sports.
Well, I think honestly, some of the equipment you're going to purchase that they may be getting, there's some 6 and 8 week lead time and stuff like that. So they need to
Plan
afford
over
that.
there.
So how about if we say these documents?
Right. But the budget, saying here's what's in your budget. We don't necessarily know what exactly the budget. We're going to budget this amount of money for.
So I'm going to put it this way. These documents must be submitted to the district business office by August 1st of every school year and 3 months prior to each sports season after. Something along those lines? So if we're looking at winter, then it would be August 1st would cover the falls. U6? Okay.
At the end of the season, you kind of know what you're going to need.
So you're okay with it? Okay.
Season.
All right.
Because you want to look at all of these budgets as close to each other.
But I think you should have your fall budget in by August, by the 1st of...
Right. I
Yeah.
think fall. If we have two simple dates, September 1st for all the fall sports, because a lot of them already started by.
Like August 12th.
All right. Yeah.
They can't do their purchasing until we approve their budget.
Right.
So they're anxious to get them
Now,
in.
well, are they?
Are you approving or
No, we're not.
No,
we're not.
we're just asking you to submit it.
We're not.
Right.
We're not approving whether we're not approving their donations. We're just later we're going to approve them as an organization to be involved with our
Expend
students.
them, right.
But we just want that. We have to have that budget.
So we know
at a
what
time.
they're...
You're reviewing them for some inconsistencies that could lead to potential problems.
Right.
Because you
What
can't,
if you
doesn't
already did
mean,
the spending money? I'm saying like a P&L as a different document than a budget. Budget is your plan, and I would expect the budget to be approved before you actually.
But it's approved
It's
by the
approved by the
membership of that
membership.
group.
because you can't legally
I agree.
spend money that was raised by parents. You can't, but you can look at it and say, oh, you can't put lights on the softball
There's a
field.
red flag here. And
You
then-
know, that you can't do.
Or that's something then that you come back to boosters and say, we saw this is a red flag, but we may already be able to say to you, we know that there's something happening in the spring that they're planning for that would offset that concern you have.
And if you have the budget,
So that's why
you could see it.
That's why I had the big purchases to be discussed before they're actually done.
Well, and their big purchases are still coming in because that's a requirement that I'm asking, that their communication is always to Michelle and Tom, especially when we're talking about the sports boosters as it pertains to the high school. And my directive to those two administrators was, I need to know when there's big expenditures, whether it's 1,000, 2,000. Let me know when something big's going on so that I can say this is
We need
the
that in there.
right.
Purchase of over $1,000 should be
Right, because
approved.
I,
Because we're
from the
approving
music
budget,
side,
yeah.
from the music side, they
We're
already
gonna have to
they
put
already knew
something
what
in
they were
that
going to spend their
triggers
money
that.
on, and then they back it up with, all right, here's where we know what our expenses are going to be, and then they start plugging in their fundraising activity to the budget to meet that, and that's really at that point when we want it. All right, we know what you're going to do, what you're looking to purchase. It's on you for actually coming up with the money, but it gives us a heads up that something's coming.
I think we need that purchase. Excess of $1,000 must be specifically approved.
I think 1,000 is too low, though. I mean, yeah.
There has to be some trigger. If they go and spend $5,000, a group, a person, a team, whatever, and then it comes to us and we see it in the budget, we go, whoa, we already plan to do this. That would benefit that group or whatever. And it's already in the works. If something's already in the works.
we're not planning.
Yeah, it's coaches' salaries and transportation is really.
We're building a policy for.
Ms. Goss, is there anything else I'm thinking of that's?
We can't go by today's practices. We're codifying things for all future.
Right, but this is going to be a living document. Also, is if something changes in funding formulas or how the PIAA works, we can always go back and change this.
So you don't think we need it?
I think that if we're watching their budget and if it's in excess, then we're well aware.
They submitted a budget. If they go over their budget, we need to know. Or actually, the administration just needs to know.
Right, but what we're saying is a budget they're not submitting a budget before they're spending. They're spending as
You're submitting a budget before you're spending. We have to approve our budget before we can spend any money.
Right.
Just like,
the board. But you're sending us your
the
approved budget.
membership has to be approved.
The
before
timing
we
of
can
it.
spend it.
You're saying you could send us an approved budget.
Right. Well, it's
So your
approved
group
by us.
approved, your group approved it, and then
Right.
you just FYI us.
Right.
Doesn't give us a
Right.
mechanism.
Well, it
There's
does
a
because you
flag.
can still look at a and say, okay, you can't spend.
We can, but what if you already began that process because you was a community?
Well, you're getting the budget for that reason. That's why you're getting it before it.
Okay, so we are getting it before this.
Right. So we're not going to say, oh, by the way, we already ordered our.
It's not like the budget is approved and then you go on a spending frenzy the next day.
That's all I'm asking.
Right, because most of the time the money's not there. You have
So what's
to
the date?
fundraise that money.
What's the
You don't
date?
spend it.
I said August 1st.
August 1st, is that, you okay with that?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I think so.
And then 6 months prior to each sports season after that.
Sold.
Okay.
August 1st.
Something else that I would like to add into this area, possibly right under where we're changing booster board budgets that exceed blah, blah, blah. I would like to add that funds raised through boosters fundraising efforts may not be used to pay student activity fees. I've reached into that research to find out how that can be done. It's not good. That's where you really open up a Title IX problem if you start allowing the boosters to pay for individual student activities. So I think we put that in there and we just tell you point blank, following this policy, none of these funds that are raised can pay for student activity fees. And Brian, right?
It should be a team.
Brian Subers concurred with that.
What from the music side, they have what's called the Proud Fund, which is which is a collection of money that people have said, well, my student graduated, don't send me that $10 back, donate it to you. And they take that money and they put it in a fund. If they have a student that, not for the activity fees, but for, there is a fee that all the band members have to pay for their uniforms and all that stuff. If there's somebody that has a hardship, they will use that money and pay for that.
And I inquired to Brian about that, and he said there's nothing that would change that would be fine.
Right.
But because you're not looking at a Title IX issue there, and the way that it's worded is that you either do it for one, if you're paying an activity fee, you pay it for one who's really in need, or you pay it for all. And for them to be put into the situation to pay for all, forget it, there wouldn't be any money to play for the baseballs, for all the other things.
Okay.
So I would just like to add that into there. The policy group would be.
Could you read it again?
Yep. And this is just mine. I didn't get this from anywhere, so however you want to tweak it. Funds raised through boosters fundraising efforts may not be used to pay student activity fees.
Seems
Okay.
pretty clear.
All right. Thank you. Next, I would like to protect the district, and something I didn't find in at least this policy, and again, maybe you have better notes on yours because
that it becomes our property after they donate.
Well, that I have. I would like to have that purchasing any gifts or uniforms, that any such equipment and uniform shall become the property of the district. So I want to add that in.
Okay.
And I want to also add in. I would like to see added in that. Our school-related community organizations may not use our district federal ID number or sales tax exemption.
Yep.
That we didn't see in there, but I saw that in a lot of the policies. Okay, are you good?
That's fine.
Okay.
I hadn't even considered that.
And the other one was that our student-related community organizations must comply with all state and federal regulations regarding accounting practices and fundraising. That was something that kind of jumped out at me, and I thought that.
Yep. I thought we had that.
But mostly, except for the PTC, to have your 501c3 status,
Right.
you have to have an audit. You have to submit your documents for approval to maintain that status.
Right.
Well, we have that in here, violation of applicable law, which could result in a revocation. So it implies that they have to be following the laws that govern that.
Right.
Their entity.
Yeah,
Right.
since we're making
Right.
an exception, I guess we should have that in there. Since we're making an exception for the PTC on not being a 501c3, because it would. If you are, you have to submit. You have to have all this documentation. You have to do all these things to maintain that status.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
So it would be a duplicate. But for those that are not, that we choose to allow to donate to the district, and that's kind of that's kind of our way of overseeing them, I suppose.
Okay.
Is that?
Right, that's what I was taking away from the other policies that I looked at. So you're okay with those three?
Carol, you all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Oh, no, wait, one more thing. Sorry. The very last page, page 5, under requirements, where it provide minutes of meetings to the building principal within 1 month after the meeting occurs. If we want them to provide minutes, maybe they can be provided to our IT director, and they could get posted someplace, because I'm not sure what our building principals are going to do with it. If I was in the building principal position and the PTC gave me their minutes, I would kind of like put them over here and say, okay.
That's a good idea.
I think that's what you're looking at, that they were more or less looking for transparency, and so that everybody could.
Kelly, don't you post your minutes on your?
Ours out to the group.
Yeah, but are they posted on the Sports Booster page of the?
We're having trouble getting there.
Yeah, I know. That's everybody.
I like that.
Good thing Scott Matz isn't here to hear that.
I'm sure that Scott could post these minutes under certain organizations. Yeah, he said he probably could.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking instead of them getting submitted to the principals, that we could just.
So you just want to make sure that it's out there. That's
right.
When we go to the checklist next. I mean, these are the things that they should be
right.
doing.
And I would just ask, could it be more timely than 1 month? we're going to post it?
Well, just like us.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Right.
So you'd be okay with it going to IT for,
How about like just after approval then?
Well, can't-
In case you don't meet that month either.
Instead of having it go through IT, can't you post things like announcements and so forth?
not on our website, they can't.
Yeah, they
He
can.
can. They can?
Yeah,
Oh,
they can.
okay.
So, I mean, make it the responsibility
Okay.
of the boosters to put it on their own. I don't think it will. Why involve the district?
Oh, good. Okay. So provide minutes of meetings to the public?
Yeah, for public view.
A few weeks then?
That's approval? Yeah.
The month say the month following,
A month following approval?
whenever they're.
Provide minutes of meeting to,
Can we do it like
The-
within a couple weeks after they're approved? Instead of a month after you're.
If you're gonna have your-
Because what if you miss the next meeting?
Your August notes should be posted in September. September should be posted. Just make it the month following your.
Like I can say.
Approval of your-
PTC usually didn't have a meeting in December or January just because of holiday. So to say 1 month after your last meeting, the November meetings minutes may not get approved for
Right.
January or February. So
So it can't be 1 month after the meeting occurs.
Well, I said 1 month after they approve their meeting minutes.
Okay? 1 month after approval of the minutes? I guess I was just wondering if we could shorten that up so they're more relevant. Once the
How about
minutes.
within
it's
5
already
days of approval?
Is that okay?
Within
I
5
love
days
that.
of approval?
5 a week? I mean,
You
it's
already
not
have
long.
I don't
it
think-
ready
What's
to go.
forever?
Really, to
2
Miss
weeks of approval?
Carol, to Mrs. Torres's point, what are we really going to do
Yeah.
with the notes anyway?
The people who weren't, at this point, I'm thinking about the people who weren't at the meeting, how it would be relevant to the other booster
Well,
members.
they send it out almost immediately after.
so I just have it there within 5 days of approval.
By-
Okay. Did you say fine?
Yeah,
Oh.
by the board,
Oh.
not by their.
Yeah, by your
by
board,
sports
right.
boosters board.
Right. Or whatever board, right.
Yeah, the
Right.
board, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then lastly, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware, and I don't think that we have any problem with the disband cease to operate, just making sure that everyone knows that we as a school district would not be able to take funds that were raised by sports boosters or any other organization, because we're not allowed to, because we're not a nonprofit or charitable purpose. So the way it's stated is, I believe, is fine. I just wanted to let you know I was looking at that as well to make sure that we weren't doing something or trying to say something that was incorrect. But the way that it's written, and it says that the district entrusts for the sole purpose of distributing said funds for the benefits of a successor club or like groups, or we might want to add or some other charitable purpose, because we can't own the funds.
Right.
According to the information I got.
Distributing said funds for the benefit of its successor club or like group.
Our copy's cut off.
Would you mind reading that?
In the event a booster/support organization disbands or ceases, all remaining funds
And
and other cash assets will be transferred to the DBASD in trust for the sole purpose of distributing said funds for the benefit of its successor club or like group.
Now, do you have something in your bylaws that dictate how any funds that you have left over are to be handled in the event you disband?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I
that's-
certainly lost. I just don't remember it off the top of my head. But that makes sense. You're holding it in trust.
Right.
It doesn't go to
I
a
think-
like organization.
So
It's not
this is-
going
you're
into
just
your
saying,
general fund.
or
Right.
some other
Or, yeah.
for the student, for student. I guess
Right.
like group.
You
kind
get-
of-
I think it'll be okay. I just wanted to, I looked into that a little bit deeper, and I just wanted to make sure that we understood we couldn't take it,
Right.
but it had to go
Right.
back to a charitable organization.
Agreed.
So I think we'll be okay. That's all that I have.
The only thing I had was
that part.
was the guidelines requirements.
Right.
And I know these have kind of long in the tooth. They've been around for a while. We already scratched the tax exempt status with the IRS for some of the groups, but
Conveniently, I can't find mine. Sorry.
yeah, just as my only question is there things that if we're asking for the tax returns from the booster organizations that they're submitting to, is there things that we can get off of that we don't have to specifically ask for again? Because it looks like, when I look through here, like the assets and liabilities, where both of those are going to be on the tax returns, so do we need to have that listed out separate? I want to get the information, but I don't want to make it overly burdensome.
I didn't spend the time looking at this piece of it. What's that?
Which page?
The guideline part.
Okay.
Majority of these groups are going to file the 990 postcard. There's not going to be any information on the tax.
It's under $50,000. If you're over $50,000, that's when you get into the detail. I wish we were all over $50,000. I'm sure you wish you were over $50,000 in music boosters, but you're not going to see a detailed report.
So I guess from the standpoint from Mr. Small, what would he expect to see, and, and what could, how, we want to make sure we're getting the information, how best, it's our form that we could send to the booth, they fill it out and return it to us, or how we want to have it.
What I'd like to do is be able to dissect this part of it the way that I delved into the policy part, and be able to come back at the next policy committee meeting to be able to speak to this part of it more specifically, and sit down with Mr. Small.
Because under reporting, it says an annual financial report is made available to each member by the audit committee. I thought and that's duplicitous, by the way, 2 and 3 say the same thing on there. I would like standard forms that all groups are submitting the same financial report.
Right. I think that we could, if we're comfortable with this and we want me to get this ready for the first reading for the next board meeting, we could do that with this part and then have this, because this is the guideline to follow. I mean, would that be?
There was something that I have notes from our last meeting that were left out of this draft today.
Okay.
Under guidelines 4, paragraph 3, where we talked about the, never mind, we already scratched that.
Okay.
Under the chain of command on page 4, we talked about step 5 being the board.
Okay.
Right, evidently?
Yeah, I thought that was on my notes. From
No,
last time.
and I didn't have that from Connor's notes, so I apologize.
That's okay. And then the other thing I have here is 501c3, must be 501c3, but I didn't see it in the wording.
And
we made a note.
didn't have that part of my notes either.
We had decided that. We just didn't.
I
thought today would have where that.
Give it back.
I gave it back to you. Oh, was that on the guidelines, or was that in?
That was
in
something
here.
That's something we had added.
In this part of it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Carol's saying no. She's seeing it in the policy.
No, I don't remember us adding that to the body. Because that discussion ensued then about the PTC and what we were going to.
Weren't we just going to give them a waiver?
Well, that's what we were talking about to start here.
Right, to state. And let me work with Lauren to, I have that down on here, and also I'll bring something back to the committee, and then we can move forward. And then by that time, I'll be able to work on this too.
Because I would like to, before we bring it for first reading, I would like to have it back here.
Right.
So that way we could give the copy to the booster organization so they can understand it. Then we'll have hopefully one last time we're going to talk about this, and then send it to the board level if we.
What is it about the 501c3 that you think is so important? Or
the bonding, the officers, the financial concerns, and all that will be dictated by a 501c by following the applicable laws of Pennsylvania guidelines laws for 501c3.
there really isn't much difference when you've got a nonprofit status and the 501c3. All the 501c3 really allows you to do is that 1099.
I'll consider that. I didn't realize what you were saying. So you're saying you would be okay with being filed with nonprofit status?
Yeah.
As opposed to. Okay, I'll have to look at that. That was never on the radar.
Yeah.
501c4 is the applicable. 501c3 and c4 are very similar. The difference between them, but c4 you don't have to file with the Fed and all that together.
So that's what you're suggesting, 501c4 versus.
Just a nonprofit, you still have to file, you still have to apply with the federal government. for your nonprofit.
501c4, you don't have to go through all the hoops.
Well, I'm just saying to get your EIN,
Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
sign up with the federal government, they give you as a nonprofit, they give you your EIN, and you're required to file taxes based on that EIN number.
So as long as you're something, some legal entity is what I'm saying.
Right.
As opposed to, yeah.
Which everybody is. PTC is a nonprofit, they file their taxes every year. Everybody else.
I don't have a problem.
Okay.
All right. Those are the two that I wanted to discuss. I do want to bring to the board that a policy that we have on this evening's board agenda to for the second reading, or however we're looking at it, or to be voted on, which is policy 902 on public participation. When we submitted these policies, the policy 005, 801, 808.1, and 902 to Brian Suber's office to look at to make sure that we were good, there were complications, problems with policy 902 because the policy hadn't been looked at since 1995, and the reference numbers on the right-hand side have changed. And I don't want to push this policy through for voting tonight. I'd like to withdraw it, make sure that I have everything accurate that's reflecting the references. And there was also a concern about something that has to do with the Right to Know Act with regard to numbers 5 and 6 of this policy. So even though we were only trying to tweak a little word in it, there's more to it, and as I become more familiar and better in working with policy, I'll hopefully be able to pick some of this stuff up before we try to put it on for approval. So I am going to be resubmitting that to you for approval at the next meeting. Right.
First reading.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you, it's 10 after.
I have nothing else.
Do you want to, new business? School visitors?
We can talk about that.
Is there an easy one in that group that?
Well, the school visitors, let me see. I have to go to Sandy's pile. The bigger one that I would rather talk about would be the extracurricular volunteer policy.
All right.
And the reason why we would like to talk about that one is because we are no longer using the Raptor system as a way for people to be able to come into our schools to volunteer. That I more or less have superseded that Raptor and have been asking for clearances. So I would like to make sure that the language in this policy is reflective of the practices that I'm putting in place with people coming into our buildings or going on trips with our students or being chaperones, or just to really protect ourselves at the highest level. So that was...
The Raptor was, if I recall, was just an instant state background check.
Tell me all the speeding tickets you had, some other, drug types of things. It would list a whole lot of different things, but it wasn't really getting into the nitty-gritty. And we had to keep continuing to pay money to keep the software up to date. It became more expensive. It didn't always work. It was fickle. It didn't...
Well, you can get a background check for $10
right.
doing it yourself. So.
And there's some other, I think, putting it on the agenda for the next policy meeting, I'll be able to come to the committee with better ideas of what my changes, recommendations would be, and then we can tear it apart from there.
Well, as I understand it right now, to be a volunteer, you need to have that Pennsylvania
right, criminal history and the child abuse.
Right.
Yes. Those are the two that are standard. We're not requiring people to have the FBI fingerprint done. We feel like those two are giving us a good picture of who's coming in to work with our children.
So the school volunteers sample one policy isn't the one you're proposing to?
It is
the 914, the 916. I didn't have a
well, this is it. This is the other. This is the other thing with these. There's so much going on to these three that is redundant that I would like to look at them and be able to create one that's
Right.
more or less governing it, because
Doesn't that do this because it starts out with the definitions, volunteer, casual volunteer. And
for 9, which one are you looking at?
916 sample 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the.
Forgive me if I made a mistake here.
No.
This was the proposal to rewrite all those other ones that sort of contradict each other.
It was one that I believe was put together prior to my position, and I have not really been, with preparing for this one, I can't tell you that I looked at that real closely. I didn't think we would be done.
All right, whatever you want us to look at the next meeting. Right?
Okay, yep. And then we also have a few others that you would like to bring to the policy level. Carol, I know that you had that we had conversation about uncompensated leave for both professional and confidential, or professional and classified staff. I think that's something that we need to look at.
You're gonna bring that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we are trying to do a sweep through.
Well, my question was, is that okay? Are you pretty much done with what you wanted to bring? I just had a question, because didn't we ask Mrs. Torch, or didn't we decide at some point to look at the PASPA policies, writing services, and weren't we going to find out if we could purchase certain ranges or something?
We do use them. We can get up to 3 policies a week from them currently under the membership that we have.
Right.
But what you brought up at an earlier board meeting, I believe in the spring, had to do with them going through them, all of the policies, and evaluating which ones really need to go. And I think that's something that needs to come back up at board discussion, or even here, as to whether or not we want to pursue it. I don't know what the cost is off the top of my head.
I have that.
Okay.
I have the costs, and we discussed it. My recollection is that I thought you had said, maybe it was Patty, I'm not sure, that some numbers were okay, some ranges were okay.
I think it was Dr. Sanker.
And then somebody was going to get back to us and see could we just get the sections, could we buy in bulk, buy the 00s to 04s?
Okay.
Well, we must have, I remember this conversation, so I think we discussed it maybe in August, because that was my first meeting. I know it was part of the discussion, but my memory was that, why, if we're going to pay a lot of money to go back and have them give us new policies, when we really have invested a lot of money already going back and scrubbing the policies, we're going to have to, even though we get some of the policy from them, we're going to have to go back and review it anyway. So I don't know necessarily that there's a big savings there to the district, unless for this one, like the service guide dog, the service animal, that was what you're looking at was probably 80% off of PSBA.
Let me get my minutes and bring it up for discussion at the next policy meeting. Okay.
That'd be fine. Do you want me to do anything in the meantime? Do you want me to check on?
Could you find out if we could purchase certain ranges? There is a bid on the books that they bid us, I think it was $7,000 for all of them. They're going to check the legality. They were going to glean from ours the intent of the ones that are out there. I thought it was a very viable service. And the only thing is, I thought that somebody said that maybe you guys in previous committees before me already started to work on blocks.
Right. I've not been a part of the policy at all.
This might.
So.
Yeah,
all right. Maybe you just want to ask them, would they?
Yep.
Could we get a range if they'd be willing to do that?
Absolutely. All right.
Is there any public comment? Seeing none, that'll conclude the meeting at 7:17.